Folks, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show here in Venice, California, and we're joined today by one of the cats, gifted songwriter, musician, and yogini, Denise Kaufman. Welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you, Jake.
Can you keep playing some? They want to keep you to keep playing harmonica.
Okay.
So, I want you to talk to people around the world about why you protested at Berkeley, and what, if anything, what is different today about, is the protest movement more disparate? I maintain that it lacks a spiritual, musical element to it. It's disparate and it lacks music, but you were there, so break it down.
So we're talking about the free speech movement.
In
1964, the fall of 1964. I had just entered Berkeley. I was 17, and I had just started as a freshman at Berkeley when the free speech movement started, when the campus police came and took away all the card tables and people manning them in front of Sparrow Hall, sharing all of their political, social beliefs and flyers and standing on soapboxes. And that was really why I went to Berkeley, was to be in the middle of all that. So when the tables were taken away and the groups were told they couldn't disseminate information on campus, that began the free speech movement.
Who took it? Who was the campus administration was taking it?
Yeah, that was the campus administration with pressure from the Board of Regents, and many people who were on the Board of Regents of the University of California at that time were business interests, both in California and nationally, who did not want students mobilizing. That was right after the Freedom Summers, right? So the students had been going from the north to the south to lend their numbers and support to the civil rights movement in the South. And there were a lot of business interests that did not want that happening, didn't want student activists. And also, people in the Bay Area were picketing the businesses in the Bay Area that were part of chains which in the South were segregated. For example, was Paramount Theaters. I went on my first picket line there when I was 14. Because the Paramounts in San Francisco, of course, were integrated, but the Paramounts in the South were segregated. So there was a big move to put pressure in businesses all over the country to have them change their business practices in the South.
Can you talk about definitively how you grew from that experience and the leadership qualities that you gained? Were you one of the people leading the charge?
I was not leading the charge, although I was active. I mean, you got to know I was 17, so there, the core committee of the free speech movement as it evolved were either sort of seniors, some of them graduate students. There are people who some of them had gone to the South and had experience with groups like CORE or SNCC or some of the different mobilizing entities that students were working with. And so, but I was a pretty enthusiastic young follower and participant. And the leadership qualities that I most admire, when I think particularly of Mario Savio, who was at the time a senior at UC Berkeley, and when I think of him standing on the police car in front of Sproul Hall in the plaza with a few thousand of us sitting around the police car, not letting the police take Jack Weinberg away. And we sat in for many hours overnight. And when I think of Mario on that car with the bullhorn, being so eloquent and strong, but also his humanity was so potent. And when you started asking about the differences of today, I think what bothers me about some things that I see today, and what heartens me about what I saw from the Parkland kids right after the tragedy at Parkland, was the fact that they let the opponent speak, so that they didn't let somebody get booed down, so that they could intelligently respond. And there was that notion in the free speech
can you give an example of what you're referring to? You're talking about the town hall meeting there
was that town hall meeting,
with
and
the
there
father?
was a woman from the NRA that was speaking.
Right.
The crowd was booing her down.
So let them show their cards.
Let them speak, and then counter that with intelligence and good reasoning.
You think progressive issues would carry more weight? I mean, the problem is a lot of the hatred and power and money, they're what they believe is already on the books.
Right.
This was more a sort of in the moment knee-jerk reaction, and you let them, people that have bizarre views, let them speak, and then it was, of course, it was young leaders, 17-year-old kids.
Right. I thought that was so inspiring and wonderful that they just didn't shout somebody down. They gave them a platform, let them say their piece, and then decimate it. And I think we all need to keep sharpening our critical thinking, and also we need to be heard and let someone be heard. I mean, I'm not talking about the Nazis in Charlottesville. I mean, that's not what I'm talking about, but I'm talking in a more of a debate forum or something like that. And I felt like the Parkland kids clearly had been mentored by wonderful teachers who helped them and develop those skills, because it was awesome.
This is important. I'm talking to Denise Kaufman here on the Jake Feinberg Show. Keep the comments coming in, having a ball. But
so going back to Mario Savio, in those days, he was so articulate and so willing to take apart an argument and take apart a position and with thoughtfully and philosophically and rationally point out the deficits and the holes in those, and so I caught a great hang with the great engineer and musician Dan Healy, and he talked about the guys that the folkies were really getting off on the Kingston Trio, because Dave, can't remember his full, okay, he was always integrating world musical instruments. They were also singing world folk tales. They weren't singing American folk tales. But it was the incorporation of world instruments that was fascinating to what eventually became bands like yours, the Ace of Cups, and other psychedelic rock bands. And I just, at that time, in '64, who was leading musically? Who were the leading voices? Because a lot of those cats weren't even, I mean, they were still kids at that point. Well, in '64, the Kingston Trio. But I would say the real voices at that time were Odetta for the free speech movement.
And what
Harry
that's
Belafonte
Belafonte always leading the charge, definitely.
And then in terms
locally,
of
though,
Joan Baez, Bob Dylan, Buffy St. Marie for sure, and of course Pete Seeger, the Lost City Ramblers.
That was those cats were very well established, and their value systems were incredibly strong. But I'm talking like were there younger bands at that time? Like, was the Queskin Jug Band too early at that point? Like 64.
64. I think there. I can't. I don't.
It's all right. You already reeled. No,
it
it was that generation. A great great tabla player, Ray Spiegel, used to go to these hootenannies that Pete Seeger put on in the Catskills. There was a clan up there. I mean, they threw rocks through the buses up there because they were bringing all sorts of different musicians up there. So it was. I'm just trying to think about people talk about 67 being the summer of love, but when I talked to people like Mario Cipollina, they said really it was 66. Do you agree with that?
Well, I would say what you're talking about in terms of civil rights and social justice, in 63, when I was still a senior in high school, and that's when Jerry and Bobby were working at Dana Morgan Music in Palo Alto.
Was Bobby working there too, or just Jerry?
I think Bobby worked there too.
Well,
at 60, hung out there.
Right.
I think he worked there.
He's hanging.
But there was Kepler's bookstore, which was
David Nelson was there.
Exactly.
Garcia was there,
and Joan Baez had been mentored there.
Wow.
With Iris Ann Pearl. And when I was in high school, was a member of the Stanford Folk Music Club. So that was the only high school member of that, and that had some wonderful musicians. Eugene Hun was the president of it at the time, and we had events, big hootenannies and gatherings, and people came to. And those were the songs. I mean, they were really the songs of the civil rights movement. Were a lot what we were playing, but not all. There was mountain music of all kinds and child ballads and ballads that had come from the British Isles, and people were playing. And that's what Jerry was playing.
Well, no, that's really the important question. Wasn't it the idea that most cats were learning how to play? And they really weren't accomplished musicians. They were learning how to play music, and it was message music, or there was a social justice component to that.
Right. And even if it was, even just playing music from other parts of the world, that already was a statement, like reaching into the roots and feeling where they go and where they came from. So that was already just like tapping down and then extending out.
Well, no, this is the thing, because I've befriended, for better or for worse, the two of the three remaining original Merry Pranksters, Ken Babbs and George Walker. And Babbs told a story about diffusing a protest that was going on at Berkeley between the students, the more progressive students, and the hardcore patriot.
That was the Vietnam Day you're talking about.
Yeah, thank you. And they diffused it with some dentine gum. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but it was. Who did you meet first, Ken Kesey or Hugh Romney, otherwise known as Wavy Gravy?
I met
people
Hugh
want to
Romney,
see. Yeah.
Before
you met Hugh, where did you meet?
I saw him. I wouldn't, and I sort of say I wouldn't met him, but I saw him do a monologue at Coffee and Confusion,
which was where
on Grant in San Francisco. There was a little folk club, and he was doing a monologue there, and
really,
and lighting farts he would fart and have a match and clear by his butt and would flame up. That was the first time I saw him, and then the next time I saw him, he was working with John Brent. That was New Year's of 1964 at the committee. They did a New Year's show, and he did this skit with John Brent that was completely psychedelic and interesting. And he played a guy called Just in Time, and he was selling seconds. He was selling moments, and it was this completely psychedelic dialogue or skit. And
was he living in New York at the time, or was he down in?
No, he was living in Los Angeles.
On the hog farm.
Jean. No, it was probably before the hog farm, I think. He was still living. No, it was for sure, because I had met the pranksters, and the pranksters going down and all landing at his little house where he lived with Bonnie Jean was what got him evicted, and that's what kind of started the hog farm.
Okay, so you saw Romney on Fox. He was doing his thing, psychedelics, with John Brent. Was there any kind of was it all spoken word?
Yes.
Or, wow.
Yeah, it was just this. John Brent was a guy who was standing on a bridge ready to commit suicide, jump off the bridge, and Wavy, or Hugh at the time, came out with this coat and said, "I've got something you've never tried," because John Brent was saying, "Oh, I've tried everything. Life's not worth it," and he said, "No, I've got something you've never tried. Moments." And just brought you into the moment, and it was amazing. Yeah.
Well, we're at such a tipping point today in so many ways. I mean, I could say that we're probably just a couple backstops away from either a banana republic or autocracy, if we're not already there. Just free associate. What would Ken Kesey say to the peeps today?
to
the mass, to inspire people. What I mean, again, it would probably be done in a very creative, artistic form. It wouldn't be done but he did give speeches.
Yeah.
He did, and they were good and people gravitate. Well, I mean, I just what would be
one of my favorite quotes of his. Actually, I have it behind me. Then I wouldn't have to bungle it if I could.
Right. Oh, you want to get it?
Sure. It's right here. Oh, I keep it on my altar.
It's Denise Kaufman's altar is Ken. Well, yeah. That's.
Since we don't know where we're going, we have to stick together in case somebody gets there. So we have to stick together. And what's going on in this country now does not in any way resemble sticking together. And I think where we're going and what Kesey would be pointing to is something that serves all of us and cares for all of us. And
what would Kesey say about the disease that's infected our country, though? He was from Oregon. I mean, he would
understand it.
Would he?
I think he would. I mean, let's say he would. It wouldn't be completely a foreign thing to him because I think he's met in his journey, narrow-minded people who can't. I think he'd seen that, and I mean, he's written about characters like that.
Well, I guess here's the better question, and thank you for letting me work through it. But it's the idea of the danger. Again, some people would say that Kesey had a following based on personality, based on his vibe. But the dangers of the cult of personality, we're seeing a cult take over. Yeah, how to diffuse a cult, Denise? Have you been part of a cult?
Yeah, probably a few times. Yeah. In my journeys to Eastern teachers and things like that. I had to.
But that's, I mean, myself. Yeah, right. Okay, that's true. It can be as equally weird.
Yeah, but I think. It's also where are we going? What is our big context? What's up here? What at the end of our life do we actually say to our maker or whatever you feel is there at the end? What has our life been about? And Kesey and the Prankster adventure have always been about inclusion and.
Fly your freak flag freely.
And letting the creative flow and be nourished and supported in all of its forms,
Don't you think that, I mean, even Venice might be an outlier to a degree, but don't you think that our culture or different cultures have been stifled in this country? And that's one reason the music's in many ways been pushed off the streets. I'm not trying to go back in a time machine. I'm just saying there are festivals that you can where people can quote unquote appreciate a culture, okay? But that's not the same thing as it being an integral part of humanity.
Right.
You talk about inclusion. If you're going to stifle culture, then I mean we're right at the precipice.
Right.
Right? You dig? I mean it was all out and open before, and even the cultural bias. Some people call it racism. It was very overt. It was overt, meaning it was right in your face. It was separate bathrooms. It was separate water fountains. Or you would see acts of cruelty, or you'd walk into a restaurant like, the great bassist Paul Boudreau was on. This guy's a New Orleans cat, one of the old school bass players, and he was on tour with Joe Simon. All right, and they were going through, some Alabama or some southern town, and nothing wrong with it, but they refused to serve them, and some white truckers came in, and when they, it was so overt that they said, listen, we drive up and down these roads all the time, and so do these guys because they're on the Chitlin circuit, right? If you don't serve them, then we'll never come eat here again. So it was very it was very obvious. There seems to be so much deception now, And I just want you to talk to people about how to stay open, keep your heart open, and also have your awareness at a top level. Outside of yoga and exercise. What are the important things for people to stay keen about and to stay sharp about in these times?
Well, first of all, moment to moment humanity.
Moments.
Moment to moment. So when anywhere you go, make a human connection with a human being, whether it's in the grocery store, in a line, or wherever you are. Especially living here in Southern California, I mean, the day after Trump, right after Trump was elected, and my friends and I were just so devastated. We just made a whole pile of sandwiches and took them up to the Home Depot, where there's a lot of usually Hispanic fellows that are looking for work, and we just brought them lunch and just said, we didn't vote for this, we didn't, and we just want to make sure you have lunch and you feel that people are on your side and in your corner. So I think there are always actions to do. Obviously, support, like in this case, there are organizations that are helping to reunite families. So there are real actions to take to whatever capacity we can financially, or just going and volunteering. But I think also I can't walk down my street here without meeting people of all different backgrounds, and especially people that are, that are workers. Because in Venice, we have a lot of people that are probably employed by Google, and those people probably, their livelihood may not be at stake, and certainly probably a lot of them aren't worrying about being picked up and deported. But there are people all over here who are, and so make a human connection and see how, you can help, or you can,
do you feel that at any point in your career you've made music to make a statement, so not a musical statement, but for social justice?
Do we in Ace of Cups music? My music,
yeah,
absolutely.
Can you talk about a specific thing?
I think a lot of what
well, you're talking to the world, so people may not be totally aware of your discography.
Well, and most of it isn't out there because we never.
Yeah, believe me, I've struggled to find any Ace of Cups record.
But it's coming. It's coming soon. We just got final mixes today for our first double vinyl release, which will be out at the end of summer, and then we'll have another double vinyl release early next spring. So music will be out there. But yes, I mean we're talking about our humanity, and that's at the core of what we write about. And there's some love songs and things like that are just
Was it talk about the rhythm of that band? Because like I said, I've struggled to find any real material. I mean, did you guys play odd time signatured music? I mean, was it all 4/4? Like it was all.
It was pretty much 4/4. We did, yeah. So we didn't do much odd time. We have one little piece on our new thing that's got a little odd time aspect, but we played different styles of music. Because we all wrote and we all sang and we all had different influences. And so, we played everything from psychedelic rock to a cappella war songs about no more war to kind of some country rock kind of vibe to folk songs to R&B to blues. And our new record is all of that.
So it's not a compilation of stuff you did in the past.
No.
Wow.
We never got to go with our own music into
You
the
never
studio.
recorded back when?
No, the only thing that's ever, in about 2004, a British record label released some live tapes that we had from then that were rehearsal tapes or live gig tapes that mostly our road manager, Frank Pulte, would bring a reel-to-reel to a gig and just set it up on the sides just so we could hear it for feedback, to learn from. So it was mostly those. Can you talk about Bill Graham and the Mime Troupe? I feel like just, what was your relationship with Bill and ultimately, I guess also the other thing is San Francisco is a perfect example where you had, Greg Arrico, Michael Carabello, Carlos. They all grew up in the city. Well, Carlos grew up partly in Tijuana.
Of course, yeah, no, but so that band, the bands, I mean, Yorma came from the East Coast and went to San Jose and then the first night he was there was a signpost that Hootenanny and Janice was there, and so was Jerry.
Right.
But the music came out of the communities, the regional sounds, the creation of regional music came out of the communities.
Right.
Can you just talk about how that was bubbling around, and then how Bill, when you first connected with Bill, and how he fostered that?
Well, I think I first met Bill when the Pranksters were part of the group of people, along with the Mime Troupe and some others, who put on the first Trips Festival.
Oh, wait,
at the
okay.
Longshoremen's
Let's
Hall.
doc at the Longshoremen's Hall. I love this. Okay, so it was the Mime Troupe, and the
see,
Pranksters.
there
The
were-
Dead were there. I mean, I guess.
And I have Stuart Brand's list of who the people were who planned.
So you have a whole. But it was.
It was Don Buchla. It was
Rest in peace, man.
Dick Petty.
The Moog.
Dick Petty. There was a
Don
group of us
Buch-
that met and were like planning what this weekend was going to be, and so Bill was part of the Mime Troupe, managed the Mime Troupe at the time. So I don't remember particularly anything about him from then. I got to know him better as he rented the Fillmore and started having music there.
Did the Cubs get a chance to play the film?
Yeah.
Okay, so I mean that's what I'm talking about. Is
Yeah.
like who were you on? Were you on bills with Miles Davis or anything?
No, that would have been fun. But I went and saw that. I saw Miles there a few times. But I think let's see, when we played, so some of the gigs that we did with Bill, I think maybe one of our biggest and most fun ones was we opened for the band for their first ever show, and that was at Winterland. So they had...
What year? About what year? I mean, that was 67, 60...
Later. I was
68.
68, 69.
Garth and Richard and all those...
The whole band.
And Levi?
It was their
my...
first ever show as the band.
That is
And,
classic.
that was when... their record,
Big Pink.
music group Big Pink, was a huge hit, but they hadn't played live as the band. They'd been, holed up in Woodstock and made this amazing music, and so their debut show was at Winterland. Albert Grossman was their manager, and we got to open for that show, and then Sons of Champlin and the band for that weekend.
Terry Haggerty tuning in, the man,
Yeah.
Sons of Champlin.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
It was amazing.
I want to get some stuff on the record for people that are going to watch this in 50 years.
Okay.
There's been some blowback about, and just be honest about it. Like at Longshoremen's Hall, were there 2 buckets of Kool-Aid?
Yeah. They were always
because Wavy will talk about getting flack for, you dosed me, I didn't know. And he's like, I always made it clear that one garbage can was
electric and one was
electric and not.
But
You chose. Can you talk about the purity of the LSD, Owsley's acid? Can you talk about what it did to expand your consciousness?
Well, it was the life-changing moment for me. That first, I took acid first at Berkeley in the spring of '65, and going back to what we were just talking about politically and everything else, I think for me, acid gave me the visceral experience that this is all one energy, and that the illusion of separateness, might have a certain amount of experiential validity, but it's not at the base of what this all is. And there's nowhere that we will go except for together. So if we're going down as a planet, we're going down together. There's not anything else.
But was there a calling for you to actually make sure that you were? Because some people don't care. They're willing to take the ship down. In fact, that's what a lot of Republicans here.
It's just ignorance, and it's just like forgetfulness of who we really are. I'm not saying just like horrible things haven't happened because of that, but this notion that we can cause suffering to each other, and my image of it is kind of like a centipede or an octopus or something with many arms. We're all the same body, and it's ridiculous to think your hand's going to cut off the other hand and you're going to survive. We won't. And so I think the more we dwell in our shared reality and our shared soulfulness, then there's a lot of things we just wouldn't and can't do that you could kind of get away with if you think you're separate.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know that you're not, and that we're not, then we have to proceed from that knowledge into whatever we're up to.
I just would, I would love you to entertain the audience. A cat that is just petrified to come on my show for some reason. I don't know why. I think you must have crossed paths with the venerable David Feinberg.
Oh yeah, he just. I was just listening before you came into our new mixes of our.
You talk about
David singing. We're singing a song together.
I think I knew. So when did you first meet? I mean, the Freiberg is a mercurial cat and a brilliant musician, but he was involved with the Ace of Cups too, way back when.
Well, he, Quicksilver was sort of our brother band, as was
really,
the Sons, But we, and so we were we toured with them. We sang background vocals for their first record. We're the angel chorus on the Fool
for Quicksilver.
Quicksilver.
Wow.
And then later we had the same manager, Ron Pulte. We played a lot of shows together. David and I wrote together, and they recorded my song, Flute Song, on their Shady Grove album. And then David and I wrote the song Words Can't Say for that Shady Grove album. So David and I used to write together.
Can you sing that song?
Words Can't Say? David did it.
Freiberg, come on the program, dude.
He's amazing.
What is his legacy to the Bay Area? Sometimes he gets lost in the shuffle just because Cipollina was fronting that band. Yorma Garcia was larger than life.
Well, that Garcia wasn't. Oh, you mean in their?
I'm just saying
right.
So Freiberg, because he won't talk to me.
Right.
I just want you to tell me what his legacy and significance was to that group, because I see the guy playing bowed instruments. I see him playing. Well, he's playing bass.
Keyboard. He plays.
He can sing his ass off. What can he do?
Yes, he's amazingly talented, amazingly soulful, amazingly kind, and has never lost that. He's always been that goodness. Yeah.
I want you to talk about your involvement at the. I'm going to botch the name. Pre Ali Akbar Khan School.
Oh, the American Society.
Was Vince Delgado there? Vince was there.
Was he there then? I'm trying to remember.
Vince was the head of the school when it was
when Ali Akbar. Yeah. So the American Society for Eastern Arts was based in Berkeley, and the first year I heard about it, that was before the Ace of Cups, and I was playing in a band in San Bruno is where we lived, with Jerry Miller and Don Stevenson,
Moby Grape, yeah,
and who became Moby Grape later, and Charlie Schoening.
By the way, San Bruno is on the cutting edge right now. It's one of the hippest. My man Alex Jordan in Midnight North, among other things, he lives down there. It's 10 years away.
Right. So anyway, I ended up joining this band. They had come from Seattle, and they were called the Frantics. In Seattle, and they came down to San Francisco, and I met them through my friend Sanda, who then later married Charlie Schoening, so she became Sanda Schoening, but who was Chuck Stakes, who played later with John Kahn and Fred Olson and all that circle of people. He's an amazing B3 player. But I ended up joining that band
Ron Stallings.
For a little while. We were called Luminous Marsh Gas, sometimes Luminous. That was what NASA said when people there were all these supposed UFO sightings, and NASA said no, it's not UFOs, it's luminous marsh gas. So we took that name.
I dig.
So it was summertime, and we were playing, and the Beatles, of course, had already been meditating, and there was a lot of George was studying sitar, and I read about the American Society for Eastern Arts offering a program in sitar, and I talked Jerry Miller into going and taking that program and letting the band pay for it, because I just thought it would be such a great thing for our group. I didn't stay in that group all that long. Charlie and my friend Merlin Winter, Martha, and I left and moved up to San Francisco and got a little place with John Kahn, and things unfolded in a different way. But I'm sorry. That school was like in my heart.
You have to realize my show. I've been given this spiritual mission by Dizzy Gillespie, Sunship, Woody Shaw, and John Kahn. So you're telling me John's he's in that. He's always looking down on me, smiling.
Yeah.
Who are these cats that moved in?
Well, John had just come from L.A. He was 17 at the time. And he had been studying with Lalo Schifrin, and he was this wonderful
What?
musician. Yeah, he studied scoring and
He was also a jazz guitar guy.
in
LA.
basis, right? But he had just come to the Haight, and we got this little place together. Merlin and Charlie, Chuck Stakes, John and I, and
Are any of those cats still with us, by the way?
Chuck is gone. John is gone.
Mar-
Merlin Wenner is very much alive.
Merlin,
Yeah.
I'm coming for you, baby. Go ahead, continue.
Anyway, but where were we?
Well, you were talking about...
So I was talking about the American Society for Eastern Arts.
That's right.
So by the next summer, Ace of Cups was in existence. We had started I met Mary Ellen on New Year's between 1965 and 1966. So the Ace of Cups had gotten together through that spring. So by that summer, when the school did their second year of the program, I was like, I'm so in, I want to go to this thing. So I signed up, and the day that school started in Berkeley, it was every morning, 5 days a week. The day that it was starting was the Monday morning after what was the Monterey Pop Festival. And the Electric Flag had been rehearsing at our house for the previous couple of months, getting ready for their debut at Monterey Pop. And
Bloomfield, Buddy Miles, and those cats?
Harvey Brooks.
My man.
Yes, Nick Rabinitis. So they had invited our band to go to Monterey Pop as their guest, and everybody in the band went except for me, because I was going to stay home and do yoga and meditate and get in the spirit of starting to study sitar on Monday. So I stayed home from Monterey Pop and started studying that morning. So that on Monday morning, our class, I think, had something like 8 or 9 students with Nikhil Banerjee, who was, that would be like, I don't know, like having beginning violinists who never had a violin before have a class with 9 people with Yehuda Menuhin,
He was a peer of Ravi's?
What?
He was a peer of Ravi
Yes.
Shankar's?
Yes, he was just
Someone asked what his name was again. Can you say it again?
Nikhil Banerjee.
Okay, but he must have treated you. It must have been a very beautiful thing.
It was amazing. And so in that class was actually Lou Gottlieb, who was in the Limelighters, and he had a PhD in musicology. His son was in that class. He was about 16 or 17 at the time. Perry Letterman was in that class.
Wavy Gravy talks about getting busted with DMT on the Golden Gate Bridge with Perry Letterman, and they were out of their minds. And the cop came up and let them go. I think he had more DMT in the trunk than it. But Perry Letterman was the most badass guitar player.
Amazing guitarist.
There are so many unsung cats. So Perry was. They were all playing sitar.
Well, we all started on this Monday. What I'm saying is we're beginners, and
you could rent the instruments.
Master player with these total beginners. And the school had brought some instruments that you could buy. They had imported some, and if you look up right there, that's my sitar that I got. It's a Ricky Ram sitar that I got to take that class. And so we studied all summer with Mr. Banerjee 5 days a week. And at the end, we became friends, and he used to ask me to take him around San Francisco, and he liked to go walking around Market Street. I took him to the Fillmore, and it was very loud for him. He was such a subtle person, and the music that he came from was so.
Oh, he wasn't
subtle.
plugging into an amp either. I mean, he was like, so that stuff just must have sounded like pure noise.
But he loved the energy, and at the very end of the summer, he told me that I had to choose between Eastern music and rock and roll. And he didn't say it like in a mean way. He just said that I wouldn't be able to hear what he called the shruti, or the tone between the tones, the energy between the tones. My ears would be ruined from the loud sounds, and I wouldn't be able to hear that. And he was totally right, because my ears are totally ruined from all those loud amps. But, my band was paying for me to study with him. My band was playing the music that I was writing. I was loyal to the band, and I didn't feel it was my dharma to give that all up and just study sitar. But it was amazing to study with him, and an honor. And he died as a quite young man. He ended up coming to be on the faculty at Mills College in Oakland. So many people later got the
Luciani
opportunity
Barrio was there.
to study
Amazing.
with him. Yes.
I mean, Denise, what is your, do you believe that, what's the best way to develop musical vocabulary? new musical vocabulary. My feeling is that in the academy, I'm not sure, even though, yeah, you took your lessons all summer, you didn't learn music in the academy. That's where the cats are coming out of today. So they're coming out of schools. Like a jazz is a good example. I know you're not a jazz player, but I mean, like that's taught as a curriculum now.
Well, yeah.
And before it was, I mean, it was, I mean, you worked your butt off, you practiced your butt off, but you basically made up the stuff. You made up new musical vocabulary on the bandstand. And I'm just curious about your philosophy about how best to make new musical vocabulary.
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm such an infant in my musical vocabulary.
But your peers, did they do it on the bandstand?
Well, they practiced. So by the time they got to the bandstand, I mean, especially when you think, I was married to Noel Jukes, who's a wonderful Bay Area jazz
It's his birthday today.
It was yesterday, yes.
You were married. I interviewed Noel a long time ago. Dude, that dude was full on. They were playing. They were a huge Mormon family, but they were playing all types of different.
Yes.
I mean, his whole family was a traveling big band.
Yes.
Oh my God. Okay, so Jukes. Well, that explains everything.
But he didn't come out of the academy in the sense, even though he had some wonderful teachers. He didn't go all through music school and do that. But people weren't in those days. But he practiced. He played all the time, and he listened to everything. And
I think also he played every tune in every key.
Right.
I mean, so he was able to. I'm so glad you brought that up because there's one cat who's going to tune in later, and I just wanted to ask.
So yeah, our daughter. We share a daughter and an amazing grandson.
I had no idea.
And our daughter made a record
Noel
last
Keith
year
Jukes.
with Noel. So they did a jazz record together. She sings and he played, and with some great players here in LA. A wonderful record here. And then our grandson is he made his second album before he graduated high school, and he's in school in Liverpool, England, in the school that Paul McCartney was one of the endowed, the Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts. So we have generations of passionate musicians of different styles of music, but all in the family.
And it's all music.
Yeah, it's all music.
But I was going to ask you about one cat, Jerry Grinelli.
Jerry Grinelli is my daughter's godfather.
Because Jerry, one of my earliest supporters of, I love. He's up in Nova Scotia now,
yes,
freezing his ass off. But
yeah. Did you hear his new record?
Sure.
Yeah.
With Robin Ford and
yes, exactly.
And no, I'm leaving.
Playing some of his kind of songs that he grew up with, that he loved, and doing great versions of that. So Jerry Grinelli is.
Did he play drums up with you guys?
Yeah, Jerry was our drum coach and worked with Diane, our drummer, and was sort of one of our couple of overall music coaches. So he, I think through Jerry, one of the songs that we did was Senior Blues. We did that, and Jerry introduced us to some different.
The Horace Silver tunes.
The Horace Silver tune. And also Afro Blue, we did that.
Mongo.
Yeah, Mongo something. Mongo's.
Mongo Santa Maria.
Yeah.
Well, before I let you go, I just want you to talk a little bit about your concept of love and how you bring love to the world today.
Well, in one way is that I do my best in my daily meditation practice to become a better person. I have one of my teachers teaches us to sit down in the morning and build a wall of virtue around you. So there's certain things that may come up for you, but not to let that out and bleed or visit your suffering on others. Don't make others suffer just because you may have some inner turmoil. So I think the first step of love is to have some restraint with your own turmoil and process things yourself so that you spare your loved ones, and so that what you offer to the people in your life is the best of what you can and what you are. I think love is there's a lot of bad things done in the name of love, like I wouldn't do this if I didn't love you so much. But it's a mistaken notion of love, I think. So love, is being able to offer what someone wants to receive. It's like not to. I don't know. I'm not being very articulate.
No, the first statement was powerful. I think the idea is like authentic, reciprocated love, not codependent.
And I think, to me, it's like, how can we offer love moment to moment? It's what we were talking about before in terms of these times. Like, how can we make a human connection with everyone we can, to everyone we encounter, and then just take a look at what our priorities are in our lives. I think for me that shows up in trying to live as simply as I can, I'm sure there's always simpler, but there's just trying to kind of reduce my carbon footprint, trying to...
I dig. Eat healthier. Do you have a solar kitchen? Do you have a solar oven?
It's just like not, be aware of everything.
Do you cook your food in the sun?
Big part.
I just came from a farm in Preston where the guy's cooking in a solar oven.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and I bow to him.
Do you turn the wireless off at 8 p.m.?
No, that would be good.
Yeah, there's just a certain. I guess the other thing is, are you familiar with the Indian shaman priestess Durga?
No.
The long and the short of it is that the world was turning very bad. The demons had taken over.
Oh, you mean Durga, the goddess?
The goddess.
Yes, I thought you were talking about a person you interviewed.
No, Durga.
Yes, of course, yes, Durga, yes.
Is Durga the remedy for our ills in society today?
I think we're the remedy. And I think, we're also the illness, but we're also the remedy. And I think...
I guess what I'm saying is that, whether or not you liked Hillary Clinton or not, she was a female. And there were many guys who fundamentally didn't want to hear and be lectured by a woman. So I guess what I'm trying to say is not that we're all in this together. I'm saying is how important is the female warrior?
I think it's really important, but not just female warrior, female in all her, and mother and child and strength and tenderness and. There's the deep feminine has, like the tail of a peacock, everything. And I think that the feminine has been underrepresented and the feminine voices need to be heard. I think somehow on a kind of cosmic level, this opportunity that Ace of Cups has 50 years later to be able to share our music and be women in our 70s, being able to share our music and play, because we live in a culture where in terms of popular culture women are supposed to just sort of fold up something and go home at whatever age, and that age seems to have gotten younger and younger. So in a culture that doesn't listen to its women, especially its women as they grow wiser, that's crazy. Obviously I was, as I said, really devastated when Hillary Clinton lost.
And you look at the ramifications of it as well.
Yes,
although I'm not really sure, she might have already been impeached by now. To be honest with you, anyway, are the Cups going to tour when the album comes out?
Well, we've been just sort of getting. We all live in different places. Couple of us one has a husband who she doesn't want to leave, so it just sort of depends on how the degree to which we'll be able to tour is we're exploring that now, but we hope to maybe not do long tours, but do some live playing. We also want to do some forums, some discussions, some all kinds of different formats.
Squats.
Squat everywhere that we can.
Denise Kaufman will do it again. Thank you so much for enlightening everybody and inspiring people around the world.
Thank you, Jake. Thank you for coming here and sitting on the floor to talk with me.
See you all later.
All right.